Welcome back to Gunner, the one-man army with the strength of a Terminator and bone density resembling Swiss cheese. Don't worry, Mission Control, I'll make it back to the drop pod before my spine gives out. Your mobile defense turret mounts and swinkalicious sidearms already have the power to stop the pulse of anything crawling on Hoxxes IV. But wouldn't it be cool if you could crossbreed your minigun with a dragon? That's right, we're adding some big fun to these big guns, so raid the nearest military base and let's show these bugs the power of lead and gunpowder. Starting our journey with the firearm aficionado is the lead-storm-powered minigun. One of the main drawbacks of this multi-barreled massacre is the delay between deciding to kill something and that something in question finding out what a 7.62 by 51mm NATO cartridge feels like when it's propelled through their flesh at supersonic speeds. With a little more oomph, you alleviate this problem by reducing spin-up time. And if this overclock being the one spin-up producer isn't tantalizing enough for you, you also get 1 extra damage. Which means a lot when you're doing that extra 1 damage thousands of times a minute. But if you'd rather solve the problems at the end of your barrage instead of the beginning, thin drum walls will reduce the cooling rate of your weapon, allowing you to return to firing much quicker. And due to the thin drum walls of thinned drum walls, you managed to cram an extra 300 ammunition into your gun. You'd think Gunner would be smart enough to always use these drums since they wouldn't affect the other overclocks, but that's way too much thinking for a single dwarf. But do you know what doesn't require thinking? Fire. With burning hell, your muzzle flashes turn into muzzle fryers. All of the excess heat generated from your combustion is forced out of the barrels of your gun, causing anything unfortunate enough to be in front of you to burst into flames. It's certainly fun to run bugs down with your projectile-spitting flamethrower, but all that fire causes your minigun to overheat a fair bit faster, so make sure whatever you're shooting at dies before it can enact its revenge. It's not all fire and brimstone in the gunner's kit. Sometimes you just want some extra ammo. With compact feed mechanism, your ammo count is increased by a whopping 800 rounds! Unfortunately, the smaller mechanisms are rather delicate, so your fire rate suffers a little as to not rattle your gun to pieces. Now we have a bit of a damage boost. Exhaust vectoring uses the power of engineering to coax an extra 2 damage out of your rounds. As I described earlier, a little damage goes a long way when spewing a sundering tsunami of steel. So how did the devs of Deep Rock manage to balance this? They multiplied your bullet spread by 2.5 times. With a spread this wide, you may consider treating your minigun more like a rotary shotgun and shoving it in the abdomen of any encroaching aliens. Bullet Hell takes a different approach to the overclock scene. Instead of increasing your damage or ammo count, it opts to take down targets using angles and a little bit of sorcery. Your minigun gains the magical power of ricocheting bullets 75% of the time. What? How is that magical? Bullets ricochet all the time in movies and probably real life. That is correct. But these ricochets hunt down anything that isn't dwarvish. And don't think your ammo's xenophobia is going to protect you. If any adversaries are sneaking up behind you, your ballistics won't hesitate to go straight through you to reach their destination. This makes Bullet Hell exceptionally efficient at ripping you to ribbons. By the way, trying to land all your shots won't help you avoid turning yourself into a colander for blood. Not only do the bullets ricochet off of malicious meat, but also this overclock makes her spread roughly the circumference of Mercury. So your efforts would be futile regardless. And rounding out the Lead Storm, we have Lead Storm. That's the name of the weapon! Oh my god! This overclock has the highest damage increase with a +4 to each of your bullets. You may be thinking that that's pretty powerful, and you'd be right. So powerful in fact that you're gonna have to brace yourself whenever you fire. And because of how viciously you're vomiting bullets, they don't have the same stunning power as usual. That's an acceptable sacrifice, but being unable to move while firing starts to present some problems. There are a multitude of machines, equipment, and wildlife you can use to circumvent this encumbrance, but if you have the energy to not be stuck to your stairlift, you can bee-hop around while tap-firing your minigun. I'm sure there's a way to do this with more skill and finesse, but we have 32 more overclocks to look at, and I'm not spending the next 5 hours perfecting my genocidal hopscotch. Now it's time for the Thunderhead Heavy Autocannon. Starting off simple, we have composite drums. Using lighter metals to fuel our escapades allow us to carry an extra 110 ammo. But that's not all. With these extra light ammo drums, you can reload half a second faster. You know what that means. More bullets for more carnage. Splintering Shells takes a look at the itty-bitty explosions your ammo produces and opts to improve their underperforming AoE. By constructing your bullets out of less stable materials, they rupture on impact, sending shrapnel in every direction faster than ever before. Because of this, these miniature grenades have a slight damage increase as well as a larger radius in which they affect. But this specific brand of bullet is still intended to hit its target before covering its face with burning metal. With Carpet Bomber, you throw out the aiming strategy entirely. Your custom-engineered HE rounds are going to devastate the landscape as well as anything that walks upon it. What that means in nerdy mechanical speak is that your explosion's damage and radius are significantly increased. Though, since your bullets are designed to obliterate themselves the second they make contact with anything and not after they've pierced a carapace, your damage is reduced by about half. I suppose that doesn't really matter when you're hitting every target with every shot. Though not all overclocks are about damage and ammo. Some are about speed. Combat mobility makes an effort to reduce almost every Thunderhead mechanic that is slowing you down. While you are using this behemoth, the movement penalty you suffer is significantly reduced, the base spread of your weapon is smaller, you start out shooting faster, and reach your top speed of death dispensing 50% quicker. With all these speed buffs, I'm half tempted to build full attack speed and see how many bullets this baby can fire. Oh, right. The downside is that all this mobility and ease of use is because your magazine is half the weight and size, and I can't be bothered to change that. But what I can change is this. Equipping damage resistance at full ROF, yes, that is its name and I know what ROF stands for, gives me the durability of a Tiger 1 armored combat vehicle when I'm firing at max speed. Since you reach maximum fire rate exceptionally fast, you'll be the tankiest bastard in the game. Until you have to reload. Maybe I should have gotten the high capacity mags. Another overclock with this halved mag size is Big Bertha. Though, instead of it being from speed and efficiency, it's from your bullets taking up twice the space. Because of this, the miniature meteors you fire out deal an extra 12 damage and their overwhelming weight makes them travel in a straighter line. Though, other downsides of packing your backpack with railroad spikes instead of bullets is that you can't carry as many and your top rate of fire is significantly hindered. Turns out loading the wrong caliber of bullets is going to cause some problems. You know what else causes some problems? Being choked to death by a cloud of toxic chemicals. Though in this situation, that's mainly the bug's problem. Neurotoxin payload allows you to channel your inner war criminal by replacing your bullets with explosive canisters filled with whatever this vile substance is that causes open circulatory systems to spontaneously collapse. The neurotoxin only takes hold half the time, but with the amount of cartridges you're expending, that shouldn't matter. What is worth noting is that this effect can be applied through the AoE of the Thunderhead, accentuated by its increase in radius. With that in mind, I'd follow the Overclock's example. Ditch the damage, increase the blast radius, and wash the environment with noxious fumes. Rounding out the primaries and leveling out the horde is the Hurricane-guided rocket system. On second thought, that guided part isn't really necessary. Manual guidance cutoff gives you the option to send your missiles careening into the distance without you having to stare at one spot for 10 seconds. By releasing the trigger, all of your active missiles stop listening to you and fly off in whatever direction they were heading. And you shouldn't have to worry too much about if their target wanders out of the rocket's path. For some reason, we replace the fuel of your rockets with a compound that burns faster, allowing for greater speeds to be achieved. You'd think we'd add this stuff to all of your ammo, but we've established that logic is a bit too difficult for dwarves to handle. Oh, and a quick side note. Shooting after you've abandoned some missiles will not make them start listening to you. You've crushed their hopes and dreams by letting them go, and now they'll never come back no matter how many times you leave an open can of rocket fuel on the porch and go, "Rocket!" Oh, there you are! Overtuned feed mechanism improves the rate at which each individual missile is loaded into the firing mechanism of your handheld SAM. Since the Hurricane has a much lower fire rate than the other two primaries, this +1 makes a world of difference. This overclock also uses a slightly less volatile version of the fuel from manual guidance cutoff, giving you extra max velocity. With the speed at which you're going to dispense maneuverable missiles, you'll have all the spray and no need to pray. Now, if your accuracy is subpar like my own, you may want to avoid aiming reliance as much as possible. With fragmentation missiles, we've increased the density of your missiles' casings. This means that more energy is required to rupture these rockets, giving you a +2 damage increase to your explosions. On top of that, the increased pressure within these rockets causes a larger explosion to be created, so any worries you may have about aiming should be alleviated. But if you'd rather spend more time tracking the enemy, let me show you plasma burster missiles. Now, when I was first reading this overclock, I didn't know what to expect. Almost every single stat that is buffed by the other overclocks is dramatically reduced. All it had going for it was this turn rate boost of all things, and whatever these plasma missiles were. The flavor text said Plasma Apocalypse, so I figured it would cover the ground with plasma similar to the Breachcutter's Trail. So, I was a bit off. The plasma burster missiles don't exactly burst. Instead, they penetrate through their target with enough vigor for many more rounds. And that's where the turn radius comes in, because after it pierces a target, you may still be looking at the same enemy, so it will pop a UE and keep on assaulting your cursor until it runs out of juice. I'd love to tell you that these rockets can penetrate 5 times, but your missiles can make bad turns and just kill themselves on the granite, so it's hard to tell. Mine Layer system also used the strategy of completely changing the nature of your missiles. All of the fancy pants electronics for the guiding system were gutted and replaced with a delayed detonator. Now none of your missiles will follow your orders, but if they land in some rock or even stone, they will become makeshift landmines. It takes about 1 second for the missiles to convert to mines, and they will stick around until an enemy gets too close or roughly 15 seconds have elapsed. You can still pretend that these rockets are normal, but the overall damage is less. Oh, and you're missing about a mag's worth of ammunition. Maybe the tech is a bit heavier and Gunner can't be bothered to carry those extra 36 rockets. Now we have the unstable overclocks. Starting with jet fuel homebrew, we are going to be replacing our propellant with Grandpappy's failed batch of moonshine for some mixed results. It certainly burns well enough, but it's ironically too stable to make a good explosion, so the blast radius and AoE damage are both reduced. On top of that, I'm pretty sure we kept some of the booze for ourselves and we're only able to store it in our ammo bag, so we're running 72 missiles lighter. We'll just load our magazines with less rockets and pretend they're full. On the plus side, the unbelievably quick rate at which the fuel burns causes the rockets to reach maximum velocity the second they leave your gun. And I don't mean your standard maximum velocity. The jet fuel homebrew causes your missiles to travel 50% faster than their not drunk counterparts. And for all my physics sticklers out there, you'll be happy to know that the increased speed of the rockets causes their direct impact damage to increase by over double the base damage. Congratulations, Grandpappy, you've successfully turned my surface-to-air missile launcher into a Thunderhead heavy autocannon. And for the final primary overclock, we have salvo mode. Believe it or not, but there are no changes for your rocket on this one. Your precious damage, blast radius, ammo, guidance, and other things are completely untouched. Unless you hold down the trigger, of course. Trying to fire this weapon as if it's automatic will jam your barrels and let you charge up to 9 shots. Releasing the trigger at any time will cause whatever missiles you stored to release outward in a wide spread with no guidance from your cursor. Each missile added to the barrage prologue will increase the damage of each individual projectile. This means that dumping a full salvo into a Praetorian is much more effective than tickling them with 9 consecutive shots. Just make sure you are actually close enough to land everything. Now it's time for the whoa there! This video's long enough as it is, but don't leave just yet. Sorry for the wait, folks, and also the bisected gunner guide. Life has been busier than a insert busy thing here, and I've been working on stuff for the channel, such as my new Patreon. Visit patreon.com/explosivet to keep these videos coming, get exclusive channel updates, and have your name slide across the screen. There's only the nitroglycerin tier at the moment, but I feel it's appropriate. Why? Because you're dynamite. Now if you'll excuse me, I have some pistols to peruse.